RTE Soccer Women's World Cup podcast, sponsored by Cadbury. For grassroots to national level, a supporter and a half of women's football in Ireland.
Turn the world round, shut the show down. I've been spinning, couldn't slow down. On the road now.
Okay, we're getting down to it now, guys. We're about less than 24 hours away from kickoff for the Republic of Ireland's first ever Women's World Cup game against hosts Australia in the Accor Stadium in Sydney. Doesn't get much bigger than this, so I'm delighted to be joined, as usual, by Anthony Pyne and by his press pack buddy Emma Duffy of the 42. How are you, Emma?
I'm good, Mikey. How are you? You keeping well?
I'm not too bad. I'm not too bad at all. Anthony, you okay?
Yeah, all good, all good. Another busy day. Keep us on our toes.
Yeah, it has been a busy day. We had the press conferences earlier. It was interesting, the press conferences. The Ireland one was pretty snappy, probably about 15, 16 minutes and it was over. The Australian one seemed to be more like the director's cut. It went on a little bit. A lot of the questions for Sam Kerr and Tony Gustavsson were along the lines of legacy, and, you know, Paul Rowan of the Sunday Times asked, you need to win this tournament for there to be a legacy, which seemed a little on the nose. So, Emma, there is, you know, obviously the rankings, form lines, everything suggests, even leave aside our good result against them in a friendly a few years ago, like, we're up against it tomorrow. And I suppose one thing Irish fans are clutching onto is that perhaps the occasion could get to the Australians. What kind of sense did you get from Sam Kerr and Tony Gustavsson? Do you think they're keeping their heads pretty well?
Yeah, I think so. Sam Kerr spoke pretty confidently in the press conference, same as Gustafsson. Yeah, I think they're really up for this, and, you know, they seem to be carrying the weight of being the host nation quite well. I suppose we won't really know for sure until tomorrow night, but their build-up has seemed to have been really, really positive. Even you feel the hype here in Sydney. I know myself and Anthony were both in Brisbane at Ireland's base camp, and it was just in Brisbane in general, it was a little bit more quiet, whereas Sydney, there is a kind of palpable hype here. And, you know, it's clear to see how much support is behind the team, and I got that definitely myself from watching the Matildas documentary on Disney Plus. So yeah, I think they're pretty confident in what they're going out to do. I suppose they've had some big results in the last few months. A win over England in a friendly, win over France last week in front of a record crowd, which will hopefully be blown out of the water now tomorrow night. As in the crowd, I mean. But yeah, I do think they seem to be carrying that weight well so far, but what does it matter unless they do it on the pitch? So time will tell.
I was looking back at it, Anthony. I was thinking, you know, hosts, you know, first game, kind of play on their minds. Now, eight Women's World Cups so far. Only one host, Sweden, has managed to lose their first game. China did beat Denmark 3-2 in 2007, but it wasn't the first game. And since the Men's World Cup has moved to the host playing the first game in 2006, only our friends in Qatar have managed to lose as hosts, and they were, you know, historically the worst ranked host team of all time. Even South Africa managed to draw against Mexico. So hosts do tend, like, we might be thinking the crushing weight on their shoulders, but actually maybe most hosts are lifted up by the hopes of a nation, and unfortunately for us.
Well, I think what's a little different here is let's see how many Irish fans are actually in the ground. Like, I mean, if it is close to 50-50, and we don't know, you know, we won't know until we get there, but there's definitely going to be a very considerable, vocal, colourful Irish support. I think if Australia win the game tomorrow, it will be because they're just a better team. I mean, on paper, they are a better team. We have to be, we should not shy away from the magnitude of Ireland's achievement just to be here in the first place. And that's not defeatist or sitting on the fence. It's just a fact. Like, they are a team that has genuine aspirations of going all the way. They absolutely expect to win tomorrow night. I mean, they are confident because they know that they have the better squad. But there is an anxiety, I think, among them, Mikey, because it's a game they're expected to win. They expect to win themselves, but they also know they're coming up against a team who are incredibly resilient. They are hard to play against. Ireland are hard to play against. You know, I said yesterday, and I know I've said this a few times, and I am stating the obvious, the first goal tomorrow is absolutely enormous. Because if Ireland get it, I really believe that if Ireland get it, they won't lose. I think they're that type of team, and we have evidence of that. They went to Sweden. I know this is a bigger stage, but you know, Sweden, Australia, I mean, is there much between the quality of those two teams? They nicked the first goal, and they really, I mean, look, they were hanging on by their fingertips by the end, but they hung on. They got a point in very, very difficult circumstances. I think that's not beyond them tomorrow. But conversely, if Australia get the first goal, it could be a long night. It could be a long night.
So we're expecting a surprise with the amount of green jerseys in the crowd, an early goal, and clinging on against a team better than us on paper. So Giant Stadium 94 is the template we're basically working off of here.
Yes, absolutely. Look, I mean, and not just Giant Stadium, Stuttgart, you know, our most famous one. That is the template, isn't it? That is the template of when you think about it.
Yeah. The Ireland press conference, I thought was nice. I thought there was a good tone to both Vera and Katie. Just give people a flavour of it if they missed it. Here is Katie McCabe addressing the idea that Ireland go into the game as underdogs.
Yeah, it's something. As a small nation, you kind of carry that title, I guess. We know, we are the debuts in the tournament, but for us, it's, we know what we do. We don't want to just be here to be happy to be here, you know. We want to compete, and we want to give Australia, Canada and Nigeria the hardest games possible, and making sure we do that, obviously starting tomorrow night. It's going to be exciting. Like I said, we know what Australia have. They've got quality all over the park, but we also know what we can do on the pitch. And having played against Australia 2 years ago, I'm sure it'll be a very different team tomorrow night. And the manner in which they've grown as a team as well over the last 2 years has been really good. They've got some nice results along the way, but also so have we. So we'll be making sure we're fully focused on concentrating tomorrow.
Ireland are the underdogs. She's embracing that. It's nothing new. But at the same time, she didn't ham it up. She didn't try and turn this into a scene from Rocky either. Like, they're professionals. They think they can win the game. Ireland expect to win the game if they play as well as they can, and their game plan comes off. So I think she struck a nice tone there.
Yeah, I think so, and I think that's something that Katie does very, very well. And all the players for that, and Vera as well. You know, they're realistic, they know what they can achieve and how they can achieve it, but they won't put huge amounts of pressure on themselves publicly. So I do think, you know, a lot of them have referenced some big past results that Anthony has mentioned there as well. Sweden, Finland away, obviously then the huge pressure on them for that playoff in Hampden. So they have experienced, I suppose, these massive high pressure situations before. This is on another level altogether, but you know, they've shown they can hold their own. They can go out and do something special. So it's certainly not beyond their abilities. I do think, though, just you do have to be realistic about it all as well. You know, this is going to be absolutely huge, and a result would be on another level. But you know, it's going to be a lot of graft, a lot of defending. That low block is going to get lower and lower and lower. Backs against the
subterranean block.
Yeah, I think so. And you see, that's the issue as well, because you know, Australia kind of attack with such chaos, and they're unpredictable, and they love getting out in the wide areas and then trying to feed Sam Kerr. Ireland can very easily get caught on the counter, so we will have to stay defensive, low, compact, all the things that Ireland teams are really good at. But yeah, a massive challenge lies ahead, but it's one they won't shy away from, and I do think they're relishing it. Yeah,
and Anthony, obviously the team flew into Sydney this morning, and they were greeted, I think, quite unexpectedly on their behalf by a sea of green. You were there yourself. You captured some of it on social media. I think that was a pleasant surprise for the players, and like, a nice boost. You know, they're the underdogs, they're the away team, but they probably don't feel very much like that given the amount of support and how vocal the support is.
Yeah, it was brilliant. I mean, as Emma referenced earlier, I think that was the first time for them probably it really hit them that this is, they're at a World Cup. You know, it was a real nice moment. And, Vera Pell spoke about it as well, how much they appreciate it and how much it means. And they know the support that they're getting, not just here, but at home. I think we've seen sort of images of Ringsend and the bunting and the flags up for Abby Larkin and other Milford and Rush and all the hometowns, Kilnaman, all the whole home areas of these players. So it does have an impact for them. It means a lot to them, and they're very proud, and they won't leave anything out there tomorrow. We know that, but it is, as Emma says, like this is a huge challenge. I thought the most interesting thing actually from both press conferences was Gustavsson basically brazenly saying, well, we've watched them. We know that their weak points are before halftime.
Let's let the man say it himself here, because I've isolated that clip because you highlighted it to me while the press conference was ongoing. So let's have a listen there.
Not only do we know the starting 11, we also know the thoughts we have in terms of game changes and plan for a finishing 11. We have an idea what we think this game is going to look like. If you look at the games that Ireland have played as of late against top team, there's no coincidence that they have been really, really strong in the beginning of both the first and second half. But there's also no coincidence that have conceded goals late in the halves, especially when it comes to some of the tactics on one or two players and one or two behaviours that we have identified that we hope we can strike against tomorrow. I'm not going to say what, but there's a clear trend there that we target. And then in terms of the roster, it's all about 90 minutes. So again, I just want to say how important it is for this team to win games off the bench like we did against France when it was 0-0 and players comes off the bench and be game changer for us. So the finishing 11 is as important as the starting 11 for us. And in terms of fitness updates, I can't reveal that at this time. I know where we're at, but I can't at this time give away too much. I keep it close to my chest for today.
Yeah, so Tony Gustavsson, he's quite Scandinavian, really. He's quite blunt. There's no false modesty with him. He's kind of said, yeah, we haven't figured out. Know my 11, know my subs, and we know we're going to beat them in the second and the fourth quarters or even later than that. And let's be honest, if he'd watched Ireland versus France, the first half of that, the first 40 minutes of it, he's saying, eek. And the last 5-7 minutes of that first half, he's probably thinking, aha. So it is something of a weakness that the way Ireland play, the intensity of their defence, how well drilled they are, it's very, very difficult to keep it going for 45, 50 minutes continuously.
It is. Now, I will say that the France game, there was a very important thing that happened. Katie McCabe went off the pitch.
Mm-hmm.
She went off the pitch, and that is when they looked a little more exposed, but only in first half injury time where they conceded 2 goals. So I think it's a little bit much. Like he also said, well, there's 1 or 2 individuals we particularly looked at that they're going to try and target. Look, again, and not to downplay the quality of Australia, because they're excellent and they've got some. It's not all about Sam Kerr. They have several very dangerous players, and they're very fluid. And they're going to play 4-4-2, but that can easily become a 4-2-4. It moves. It's flexible. It's okay saying, well, we're going to target whoever they're looking at, and we don't know exactly. We were sort of speculating among ourselves earlier on who we might have been referencing. But if Ireland get it right, as a unit, it's very difficult to target any one individual when the unit works well. So I guess from their point of view, they just have to try and focus on getting their own thing right. And as Emma correctly says, the danger from Ireland's point of view is that they go too deep, and Katie McCabe is playing near her own corner flag. That's a real worry. That's a concern, because she's our big out ball. But look, let's stay optimistic, because if Ireland get it correct, that game against France should have been 0-0 at halftime. In the end, it was McCabe going off. Izzy Atkinson came on, just got caught a little flat-footed, and then it was a header, a miscue from Heather Payne. It was unlucky, and then the second goal was a bit of a sucker punch. So I wouldn't. That's not overly indicative of this team. That particular period that he seemed to be referencing today, I don't think.
Yeah. Well, Emma, the flip side of it is he's saying we actually don't. We know we're going to struggle to break down this team for long periods of this game, and we're kind of almost like we're going to rely on the cavalry, whether it's Mary Fowler or whoever coming off the bench to try and break this game. So the other way of flipping it is that he doesn't have total confidence that his first 11 will break down this Irish team, and he's hoping that when the game gets a bit ragged in the closing stages, they might get the job done.
Yeah, I guess so. And that's one thing that could work in Ireland's favour as well, because, you know, if Ireland can frustrate them and make things difficult, which they do so often for so many teams, then it can go right down to the wire and things just don't go as maybe some people had thought. And, you know, I suppose the crowd as well, obviously when you've up on 75,000, 80,000 people in a stadium, and as we say, we're deliberating over how many is going to be, what the split is going to be. But, you know, if the Australian fans are getting frustrated, you know, it kind of spills over then, doesn't it? So yeah, there's all these different things at play. The one thing is, yeah, this Ireland team are they can make life really, really difficult for their opponents, and that's something they'll be targeting doing tomorrow. And just on something Anthony said there, he mentioned it should have been 0-0 at halftime against France. It very easily could have been 1-0 Ireland. So I suppose we look at that as well. Ciara Cruz's goal that night, done for offside in the end, but I think it was a goal. But then again, you know, there weren't very many other chances created that night. So that is another thing as well. An Irish goal, if it comes tomorrow night, will most likely be from a break or from a set piece, which we're so famously known for. So yeah, that's one thing for me anyway. Like, how Ireland are going to score, that is a big question.
Just to add to that, because it was similar against the USA. You know, with Ireland, they could have could they have taken the lead? Was the header was it Caruso's header was it 0-0 at that point, or maybe
Yes.
they're 1-0 down?
I think it was 0-0, wasn't it?
So this is the margin. Yeah, these are the margins we're talking about. Like, if Ireland go 1-0 up in either of those games, honestly, like, it's a totally different game, because even the goal against the USA, Courtney Brosnan, who's been brilliant, but she was caught out of position for the first goal, and then she let a long sort of speculative punt drift over her head. Again, not like her, you know. So there is always the chance that this completely clicks for Ireland. They do get the first goal, and then it will be very interesting, because what I will say is, because we're talking about Ireland being deep and Katie McCabe getting pinned in. However, Australia are loaded with pace. What's the best way to defend against pace? You drop deep. You don't let teams get in behind you. The space that their wide players in particular love to gallop into. If there's no space to run into, what do? They start to turn back, play backwards, sideways. I think that is what Ireland will be really looking to do and trying to do. So listen, this isn't going to be pretty to watch from anyone tuning in to expecting maybe Ireland are going to have a go with them. They're not. They're not. They're going to try.
Any fair weather or bandwagon jumpers here could be in for a rude surprise at 11 o'clock tomorrow morning. All right.
Yeah, this will be. Let's try and grind this out, and that's how they're going to go at it, and that's what's taken them to this point.
Love it. So for Ireland to score a goal, Emma, we're going to have to penetrate the Australian defence, and Gustavsson wasn't given much away on the injury front, because that's where probably they have their most headaches, I suppose. I think Alana Kennedy came back against France, didn't she? She played well, but you don't know whether there's a reaction. They have Claire Hunt, who's quite one of the more inexperienced players in the squad, has come in, and I think the Polkinghorne is kind of their most experienced defender, really, isn't she? And she's the one I guess there's a doubt over. So their central two in defence is a little bit up in the air, and that's one area of the field where you certainly don't want to have any uncertainty.
Yeah, that seems to be the big talking point in Australia anyway. You know, what will Gustavsson do? Will he, I suppose, stick with the tried and tested experienced duo that has been, but Alana Kennedy obviously only just coming back into the fold now. So yeah, that could go either way. Otherwise, then I think it's pretty much as you were. I know they picked up injuries the other night against France, and Yallop, I think, had a little bit of a knee setback, but I think the messaging is she's good to go. but when I was watching it in real time, I really didn't think she was. But yeah, I suppose even just looking at their squad, the depth they have, it's incredible. As you say, Mary Fowler, with an Irish father, we have to get that in there.
She'd be starting for us.
Coming off the
She made
bench.
the wrong choice.
That says a lot. Absolutely. And Sam Kerr as well, with an Irish grandfather. But yeah, you know, the likes of Mary Fowler, as I say, coming off the bench, that just shows it's in the squad and the talent that they have. So yeah, it's you know, it is, when you look at their squad and at their setup, it is pretty impressive. But you look at Ireland's as well, you have the likes of Katie McCabe, Denise O'Sullivan, Sinead Farrelly hopping off the team sheet as world-class talent, and I'm really excited to see them hopefully lighting it up on a world stage and showing what they can do.
Megan Campbell makes the point in her column, Anthony, just kind of the focus on the flanks here for both teams, obviously. Like, you know, Australia's game plan is get down the wings and get the ball in the box for Sam Kerr and whoever's playing alongside a Razzo or Ford. And Ireland, obviously, best player plays the left wing back. You know, we've brainwashed another striker into being the other wing back. So like we obviously put an emphasis on it, but Megan was making the point that all this emphasis on the flanks could play into Ireland's hands and like leave a little bit of space in the middle of the field for Denise and Sinead, which is kind of an interesting idea, that perhaps leaving Ireland's two most creative players with a little bit more space than other teams might do. That could work.
Oh, that could absolutely work. And like, I really like Australia's two middle players, likely to be Kyra Cooney-Cross and Katrina Gorry. They're two excellent players, and you know, we shouldn't actually buy into this idea too much of everything's down the wings, because there's creativity coming through the middle as well. Like Ford, it's very clever. She can drop and interchange. There'll be a lot of spinning around and swapping between her and the likes of Gorry. So there's threats through the middle too, but absolutely, as Megan says, like, we have, we will have Denise O'Sullivan, Sinead Farrelly, and probably Rusha. We think?
Seems to be the mood music that is heard at the moment.
So, potentially 3-on-2. And it was one of the things, if you watched the game against France Australia's game against France last week, there were occasions when the two, Gorry and Cooney-Cross, they just got caught flat. Like, they're a 2 and a 3 versus 2. You can potentially make hay there. You can play around them. And there could be space. And that will be our big hope, that we can do that. We can catch them on the counter. They love to counter. This will be a strange game, actually, because neither team, both teams prefers to counter. Like, it's sort of, they'll both
be like a game of Gaelic football.
They'll both sit back and just be like 50 yards of space in the middle of the pitch. It's a bit strange. So they might not, like, if they have all the ball and Ireland suck them onto it, they won't necessarily like that either. You know, so it could be potentially an area where we could expose them if we can counter quick through the middle with those players. And you're looking at Farrelly. Farrelly needs a big game tomorrow. You know, her third cap. It's a big night for Sinead Farrelly. She's really important. We know what Denise O'Sullivan's all about, but we need Sinead Farrelly to play to her full potential. And if she does that, that's a major asset for Ireland. That's actually not something that's really been spoken about too much. I don't think the Australians have mentioned her at all. Maybe because she just come on the scene so late, but she could be really important tomorrow night for us.
Yeah, it's worth discussing her briefly, before we finish up, because she's, despite those couple of amazing cameos, she is still a bit of an unknown quality. But what we've seen is that everybody really likes. You know, she could play on the half turn. She's quick with a pass. She's got great vision. But the unknown quantity is she's so long out of the game through injury and for personal reasons also. So has she got the sea legs? Has she got, you know, is she up to playing 3 internationals in the space of a week and a half? Kind of like, if she is, she's an amazing boon, because as Anthony says, not only is she brilliant, she's also, a lot of people are just completely unaware of her, which makes her even better again.
Yeah, that's the big question, Mikey. Obviously, I think it was around the 80th minute against France, she came off struggling with cramp. So you'd hope we won't see that tomorrow night. I know her load has been kind of managed. It was probably hoped that she would get up to 90 before the tournament kicked off. So we'll have to see how things go. But no doubt Vera Pauw has a plan. She seems to always do. Like even that first game against the US, Farley just played an hour and she showed exactly what she can do in that hour. She didn't feature in the second game, and then against France, I suppose it was probably a little bit of a mixed bag. I probably expected a little bit more from her against France, given the impression she made on her first cap. But we know what she can do. We know what she has in her locker, and she seems to be just like a really calming influence on the pitch as well. So I suppose bring that tomorrow night. I know speaking to her after the France game, she was a little bit iffy about playing in front of the amount of fans they're going to be playing in front of, and she said something along the lines of, I can't overthink. Once I start overthinking, I'm a disaster. So it's about managing that going into the game and hoping that she can I suppose show through her play what she can do. So yeah, as you say, managing that load, if she can get up to the 90, fantastic. But it is a very intense, grueling few days ahead, even just with all the travel as well. And then you have 3 games in 11 days.
We should mention as well, Emma, that the players were late getting to training tonight, weren't they? Because you nipped across to it. They got caught in traffic. So there's there potentially be a question mark of why did they travel today and not yesterday? You know, straight off the plane, caught in traffic, late to training, not ideal.
I was just going to say then that kind of knocks everything off kilter a little bit, because their pitch familiarisation then was back in Stadium Australia. So hopping from one venue to another. But yeah, you'd hope that tomorrow is planned right down to the second, I guess. And there'll be no such issues.
Yeah,
it's sorry, Mike.
I just wanted to ask, why is what is the reasoning behind them having their press conference in the stadium they're going to play in, and then not allowing them to train in the stadium where they're playing? It just seems to be adding a layer of complication in a very busy metropolis where getting around is difficult and their time is precious. And as you said, the less time sitting on a bus, the better.
I mean, I don't actually know if there's an official reason for it. If Emma knows, yeah, it would have been a lot easier for everyone. I don't know if it's like stadium regulations or the fact that they still seem to be kind of getting everything ready there for tomorrow in preparation for, over 75,000 fans. By the way, we got clarification. We finally got clarification on the actual attendance, because we've been all sort of saying 80,000.
Over 80,000, yeah.
It's 700 and something. So over 75,000.
We had this with Qatar as well, where the attendances were in dispute for the first few days. And it's interesting, the Lions, the British and Irish Lions rugby team, have announced their fixtures for for a couple of years' time, where they're playing in Australia, and one of the games is in the Accor Stadium, and it's listed again as having an attendance of a capacity of 82,000 or something. But obviously, FIFA brought this down a little bit for some reason or other.
It's some place, by the way, isn't it, Emma? We had a look at it there.
Okay, yeah,
it's amazing.
Yeah,
great stadium,
amazing.
As the excitement is building at home here, I can't imagine how it is for you guys there, even if you are fighting tiredness. It's that moment, guys. We're going to go now in a second, so I'm gonna have to badger you for a prediction. You're first, Emma, as the guest.
Oh, lovely, thanks. It's a little bit of a head versus heart one for me. My heart says a draw, a 1-1, or a 0-0 even. My head says an Australia win, an Arrow one, but still an Australia win. So yeah.
You're all heart, Emma. Don't worry about it. You're all heart. We'll listen to your
first
prediction.
That's it, Mikey. All heart.
Anthony, how about you?
No, it'll be very tough. I think Ireland will have to settle for a 4-0 win. No, same as Emma. I think I will say with a heavy heart, I think Ireland will get bet, but I think it will be 1-0. I think the reason I say that is if they go 1-0 down, nothing will change. Like they won't change. Like they'll stay in the low block. They'll continue to do that. So even if they concede, worst case scenario, they concede early, I think they will still just remain dogged and hope to keep in it and maybe nick a corner or something. So 1-0 to Australia.
Okay. 1-0 to Ireland. Louise Quinn header from corner in the, I'd say, the 12th minute there. I haven't got any money on this, so this will be purely bragging rights. Emma and Anthony, I will let you go. I know Anthony has a bit of work left to do. Emma, you're probably you've probably got it all nailed at this stage, all put away, filed away. No, she's got work to do too. All right, folks, we better let these.
I wish.
Let these hard-working correspondents get back to work. Emma, Anthony, thank you very much. And just a reminder, the game, of course, can be watched on RTE2, the RTE player, and listened to on RTE2FM, and we'll have a live blog, report, reaction, and everything else on the RTE website and the RTE app. That's the housework done. All right, guys, thanks very much. Good luck, and we'll chat to you tomorrow after the match. Goodbye.
Supporter and a half likes, shares, comments and tweets. Cadbury sponsors RTE Soccer Women's World Cup podcast.